I remember the first time she looked at me, really looked at me, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected to find. The light from the shop window fell across her face, soft and uneven, catching the tiny lines near her eyes. She didn't try to hide them. That was the first thing that disarmed me. Everyone else I knew was busy pretending to be someone, but she was busy being herself. Elena. She ran the old bookshop across from the cafe where I worked nights. We'd talked before, polite exchanges over burnt coffee, or her late orders of chamomile tea, but that night, the air was different. It was closing time, and the city outside felt hushed, emptied out. Just her and me, surrounded by shelves that smelled of paper and dust and rain. She was leaning against the counter, half laughing at something I'd said, I don't even remember what, and I noticed her hand resting near mine. Not touching, just there. Too close to ignore. The space between our fingers felt louder than anything we were saying. You always stay this late? She asked. Her voice had that low calm that made you want to answer slowly, just to keep hearing it. Only when it's worth it. I hadn't meant for it to sound like that. She smiled, small and knowing. You should be careful with things that sound like confessions. I didn't answer. Couldn't, maybe. Her gaze held me there, not teasing, but searching, like she was trying to decide if she should step closer or walk away. The ceiling fan clicked softly above us, spinning slow circles. Outside, the rain pressed against the windows, blurring the street lights. I could hear her breath when she exhaled, steady but measured. She wore no perfume, or maybe she did, something faint, clean, that stayed in the air even when she moved away. When she reached for a book behind me, her shoulder brushed mine. A simple motion, nothing more, except it didn't feel simple. My chest tightened. I stepped aside, but she stayed close, her fingers grazing my wrist for half a second as she passed the book into my hands. Her touch wasn't deliberate. Or maybe it was. You're quieter tonight, she said. I'm thinking, I managed. About? I opened the book just to have something to look at. About why you always choose stories about people who almost get it right. She smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. Because that's how life works. We almost get it right. Something in the way she said almost made my throat dry. She started wiping down the counter, pretending to busy herself, but her movements had a restless rhythm, the kind people have when they are avoiding something that already happened, or might. I wanted to ask her what almost meant for her. I didn't. The rain outside thickened. The clock behind her ticked past closing. She turned off one of the lights, leaving the room half dark, and in that fading glow, she looked softer, almost tired. Not in a way that made her less beautiful, in a way that made her human. I should lock up, she said quietly. Right? But neither of us moved. There was just the sound of rain, and the faint hum of the old refrigerator in the back. She stood with her hand on the light switch, eyes on me like she wanted to say something, then didn't. And just when I thought she might, when the air between us felt too fragile to breathe in, the front door creaked open. A voice from outside broke the silence. Sorry, are you still open? Elena's hand dropped from the switch. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me, one heartbeat too long. Almost, she said. The next time I saw her, she was sitting alone in the back corner of the cafe, same table, same chamomile tea, but her eyes were somewhere far away. I'd stopped pretending I wasn't waiting for her to come in, though I still acted surprised when she did. She looked tired that night. Not the kind of tired coffee could fix, the deeper kind, the kind that sits behind the ribs. Her hair was damp from the rain, and she kept twisting the ring on her left hand, a thin silver band that caught the light, but never reflected anything back. I brought her tea without her asking. She looked up, startled, then smiled faintly. You always know, she said. I pay attention, I replied, setting the cup down. She studied me for a second too long. You shouldn't. It'll make you old too fast. There was a softness in her voice that wasn't there before. I sat down across from her, not invited, not stopped. The steam from her tea rose between us, thin and curling, blurring her face for a heartbeat before clearing again. Were you married? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Her fingers paused mid-motion on the ring. Once. A long time ago. I waited. She didn't elaborate, so I tried to fill the silence. Did it end badly? She smiled, small, almost amused, but not happy. They all end badly, don't they? Otherwise they don't end. The way she said it, quietly, matter-of-fact, made me feel the weight of years I hadn't lived yet. I wanted to say something that didn't sound like a boy trying too hard. Instead, I watched her stir her tea though she'd added nothing to it. The spoon clinked gently against the cup, rhythmic, almost soothing. You, she asked suddenly. Someone waiting for you. I shook my head. No. They say I fall too fast. Do you? Only when I shouldn't. Her eyes flicked up at that. There was something sharp in them, something almost warning, but she didn't look away. When I reached for the empty saucer, my hand brushed hers. The touch was nothing, just skin meeting skin, but it made every sound in the cafe dim for a moment. She didn't pull back immediately, her fingers rested there, cool and steady, before she moved them away slowly, deliberately. Her breath caught. Or maybe it was mine. She changed the subject after that, asked about the band I played with, about music, about things that didn't matter but felt safer. I answered, half listening to my own voice, half listening to the soft, uneven rhythm of her breathing across the table. Outside, the rain had started again. Someone opened the door, and a gust of wind swept through, carrying the scent of wet pavement and coffee grounds. She shivered, almost imperceptibly, and I offered my jacket without thinking. She hesitated. Then she took it. Her hand brushed my arm again, as she slipped it on. It's warm, she said quietly. So stay a while, I whispered. Her lips parted like she might answer, but she didn't. Instead, she looked at me for a long, fragile moment, then turned toward the window, her reflection flickering against the glass. The silence between us wasn't empty this time. It was full of things neither of us had said, and maybe never would. Still, when she finally stood to leave, she touched my shoulder lightly, barely there, and said, "Thank you, Noah." It wasn't the words. It was the way she said my name, as if she'd just realized she liked how it sounded. The next week, she didn't come in at all. I told myself I didn't notice. That I was just busy, that nights stretched long anyway. But when I caught myself staring at the empty corner table instead of counting the till, I knew I was lying. On the fourth night, the bell over the cafe door rang just before closing. I looked up too quickly. Elena. Her hair was damp again, but this time she wasn't dressed for rain. A fine drizzle still clung to her coat, shining under the light. She looked like she'd walked straight through a storm just to be there. I shouldn't be here this late, she said, breathless. You say that every time, I replied, already reaching for the kettle. She smiled, faint, guilty. And you never tell me to leave. I don't want to. That hung between us for a moment, too honest to take back. I made her tea anyway. The sound of the kettle filled the silence, small and ordinary, but it steadied something in me. When I set the cup down, she didn't touch it. She was watching me, or maybe she was watching herself in my eyes. I saw you yesterday, she said suddenly. With that girl. The one with the red hair. I blinked, thrown. She's a friend. From the band. Elena nodded too quickly, then laughed under her breath. I know. I'm being ridiculous. Her cheeks flushed, and she pressed her fingers against them, half hiding. Never mind. There it was, that tiny crack in her composure. The one she never let anyone see. I wanted to reach across the counter, to touch her hand, to say something that would make her stop apologizing for being human. Before I could, the back door creaked open. "Hey, man, you closing up soon?" It was Max, my co-worker, poking his head out from the storeroom. Elena flinched back instinctively, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. I stepped sideways to block her view, heart thudding hard. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just finishing up." Max gave me a look, curious, not suspicious, then disappeared again. The door clicked shut. When I turned back, she was standing closer than before. Close enough that I could see the faint freckles along her collarbone, the pulse at her throat. "You shouldn't have to hide," I said quietly. Her eyes lifted to mine. "It's not you I'm hiding from, Noah. It's everyone else." We stood there, two people pretending not to lean forward. Her hand brushed the inside of my wrist, slow, uncertain. My skin burned where she touched me. The sound of the rain outside filled the small space again, steady and insistent. I thought she might kiss me then. Or maybe I thought I might kiss her. Instead, she whispered, "This can't happen." "Then why does it feel like it already has?" Her breath caught. The air between us tightened until even breathing felt like trespass. She reached up, maybe to push me away, maybe to pull me closer, but stopped halfway, fingers hovering near my face. The bell over the door chimed again. We both turned sharply. A group of customers, laughing, drenched from the rain, stumbled in. Elena stepped back so fast her chair scraped against the floor. She picked up her bag, her voice suddenly careful. "I should go." I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to stop her. As she passed me, she hesitated. Then her fingers brushed against mine, a silent apology, or maybe a promise. She left without looking back. But long after the door closed, I could still feel her touch on my skin, the ghost of something that hadn't happened, but already had. I didn't see her for almost a week. By the time she finally appeared again, I'd gone through every version of what I'd say, none of which survived the moment she stepped into the cafe. She looked untethered. Hair pulled back too loosely, coat buttoned wrong. She hesitated near the counter like she wasn't sure if she should be there. I wiped my hands on a towel I didn't need and said, too fast, "Hey." Her eyes lifted. "Hey." For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The hum of the espresso machine, the distant chatter from outside, everything felt muffled, like the world had stepped back to let us ruin ourselves in peace. She broke first. "I shouldn't have left like that last time." "You didn't have to explain," I said. "But I should have." She laughed softly, brittle. "I keep doing this, getting close, then panicking. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch every time you look at her like that." "Like what?" Her gaze dropped. "Like you mean it." The towel slipped from my hand. "Maybe I do." That stilled her completely. She looked at me as if I'd just said something dangerous, which, maybe, I had. "You don't understand," she whispered. "People will talk. They always talk. I don't care." "Well, I do," she said sharply, then pressed her lips together, as if she'd said too much. The words hung there, vibrating between us. I stepped around the counter. She didn't move. I could feel the warmth of her even before I was close enough to touch. "You're scared of them," I said quietly. "But you're more scared of this." Her throat moved as she swallowed. "You have no idea what this costs, Noah." "Then tell me." She shook her head, voice barely above a breath. "You're too young to understand what it means to lose something twice." She started to turn away, but I reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. My fingers trembled, not from nerves, but from restraint. Her breath hitched. She didn't pull back. "Don't," she whispered. "Please." But her voice betrayed her. It wasn't a plea, it was surrender dressed as resistance. The scent of her, rain, paper, something faintly citrus, filled the small distance left between us. I could hear her heartbeat, or maybe it was mine. "I keep thinking about you," I said. "Every night. Every time I close this place, I half expect you to be sitting there." She laughed once, brokenly. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because if you do," she trailed off, shaking her head, "I won't be able to pretend anymore." Her hand came up, resting lightly against my chest. It wasn't a push. It was a pause, the kind that happens right before gravity wins. Her fingers curled slightly in my shirt. I leaned in, slow, afraid to blink. Our foreheads almost touched. The air between us was warm, trembling. And just as her eyes fluttered shut, the lights flickered. The generator kicked in with a sharp, electric hum. The sound startled her. She stepped back, hand falling away. We both stood there, breathing hard, the moment splitting open and then sealing itself shut again. She looked at me, eyes wide, voice shaking. "If I stay one more second," she said, "I won't leave at all." And then she did. I found out by accident. It was late, after closing, the cafe half lit and quiet. I was restocking the pastry case when I heard a familiar voice, hers, outside the back door. I froze. She was on the phone. The tone was low, clipped, the way she spoke when she was holding too much inside. "No, I can't keep doing this," she said. "It's not fair to him, or to me." Silence. Then, "He's just a kid, Daniel." Daniel. The name hit like cold water. I shouldn't have listened. I know that. But I did. Because I couldn't stop. Another pause, then her voice cracked, softer now. "You don't understand. He makes me feel like I'm still someone. And I hate that I need it." The line went quiet. I backed away before she saw me, heart hammering so hard I thought it would give me away. When she came inside a few minutes later, her eyes were red-rimmed, but her voice was steady. "You're still here," she said. I could say the same. She tried to smile. Bad habit. I wanted to ask who Daniel was, but the question burned itself out before it reached my mouth. Instead, I started wiping the counter that was already clean. "You look tired," I said. She tilted her head, studying me. "You always notice things you shouldn't. So do you." The tension was different tonight, sharper, charged. Every sound in the room felt amplified, the clink of a mug, the hum of the fridge, the uneven rhythm of her breathing. When she moved past me toward the sink, her shoulder brushed mine. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the cup down, porcelain against metal. "Elena," I said before I could stop myself. "Who's Daniel?" She froze. Then she turned, very slowly. "You heard." I nodded once. Her eyes closed, and for a long moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "He's my ex-husband." I should have felt relief. I didn't. "Do you still love him?" Her eyes opened, and something in them flickered, pain, maybe guilt. I don't know what that word even means anymore. She stepped closer, too close. The edge of the counter pressed into my hip, trapping me there. Her hands were trembling, but she didn't hide them. "I didn't want you to hear that," she said. "It makes this sound like something it's not." "And what is it?" I asked. She looked at me, long and unguarded. "Something I can't stop wanting." The air between us went still. Her confession wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of truth that rearranged everything, what I thought I knew about her, about us, about where this could possibly go. For a moment, I thought she'd reach for me. Her hand lifted halfway, then fell. She stepped back, shaking her head, as if she'd just broken a promise to herself. We can't keep pretending this is innocent. I'm not pretending. I know, she whispered. The silence that followed wasn't soft anymore. It had edges. She took a deep breath, steadied herself. Meet me tomorrow, she said finally. After hours. No customers. No noise. Just us. Then she walked out before I could answer, leaving behind the scent of chamomile and rain, and the certainty that nothing would be the same after tomorrow. The next night, I locked up early. The rain had stopped, but the streets still gleamed, the kind of shine that made everything look a little unreal. I told myself I didn't know if she'd come, but my hands wouldn't stop fidgeting, the way they do when you're waiting for something you already know is going to happen. Then the bell over the door chimed. She didn't speak. Neither did I. Elena stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The sound of the latch clicking felt louder than it should have. She looked different, not put together, not composed. Just real. I shouldn't be here, she said softly. I know. She hesitated, then added, but you waited anyway. I always do. That pulled a small, broken laugh out of her. She moved closer, her heels clicking against the old wooden floor, the rhythm uneven. When she stopped, we were just a breath apart. I could see everything, the faint smudge of sleeplessness under her eyes, the way her pulse fluttered at her throat, the tremor in her hands that she tried to hide by folding them together. I kept thinking about what you heard, she said. About Daniel. About me. You don't owe me explanations. She shook her head. That's the problem, Noah. I do. Because you make me want to say things I swore I'd never say again. I swallowed hard. Then say them. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she took one step closer. Her hand lifted, stopping just before my face, her fingertips hovering near my jaw, as if she needed permission she already had. I didn't move. You think this is simple, she whispered. That it's just about want. But it's not. You make me remember what it's like to be seen, and that terrifies me. Her voice cracked on seen. I felt it more than heard it. I reached up, brushing my thumb along the side of her wrist. You don't have to be afraid of that. Her breath trembled. I'm afraid of what happens if I'm not. We stood there, the quiet pressing around us. Her hand slid against my chest, stopping over my heart. The weight of it was light, but everything inside me leaned toward that touch. She looked up then, and whatever wall she'd built over the years, it wasn't there anymore. I leaned in until her forehead rested against mine. Neither of us breathed. I want this, I said. She closed her eyes. So do I. For a long, fragile second, that was enough. Then she stepped back, slow, deliberate, though her hand stayed against me a moment longer than it should have. But wanting isn't the same as surviving it, she whispered. I don't care, I said. Her smile was small, aching. That's what scares me. The air shifted, heavy, final. We both knew something had ended and begun in the same breath. When she finally turned toward the door, she didn't look back. But just before stepping out, she said, almost to herself, now you understand. And I did. It wasn't about losing or keeping her. It was about seeing her, really seeing her, and knowing she'd let me, even if only once. It was weeks before I saw her again. The cafe felt different without her, quieter in a way that didn't come from the sound. I'd stopped looking at the door every time the bell rang, but only because it hurt less to pretend I wasn't waiting. Then, one late afternoon, she appeared. No coat this time. No hesitation. Just Elena, hair loose, face bare, eyes soft in a way I hadn't seen before. "You're open?" she asked, though the sign clearly said closed. "For you," I said. That made her smile, small, shy, but real. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her, and the air seemed to breathe again. For a while, neither of us said much. I made her tea like always, chamomile, 2 spoons of honey. She sat in her corner seat, tracing a finger along the rim of the cup. Finally, she said, "I thought staying away would make it easier." "Did it?" "No," she said quietly. "It just made it lonelier." I sat down across from her, same as that first night. The space between us felt familiar now, not something to cross or close, just something that existed and didn't need to be explained. "I was scared," she admitted. "Not of you. Of how young you make me feel. How much I start to hope again when you look at me." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just reached out, letting my hand rest on the table, palm open, waiting. She looked at it for a long moment before placing hers over mine. Her fingers were cool, delicate, but the warmth that spread through me felt steady, grounding. "You're not supposed to make me this happy," she whispered, her thumb brushing lightly across my skin. "Maybe you're supposed to let someone try." Her laugh was quiet, but it reached her eyes this time. She leaned forward, and I caught the faint scent of her tea, the warmth of her breath against my cheek. Her hand slid from mine to my wrist, then higher, stopping at the curve of my shoulder. She didn't pull me in, but she didn't have to. I moved closer, until her forehead rested against mine. The world went soft around the edges. "This doesn't have to be forever," she said, her voice trembling. "Just honest. I can do honest." She smiled, not the sad one, not the guarded one. The real one. Her lips brushed my cheek, light, lingering, then she rested her head against my chest. My arms went around her automatically, and everything that had felt uncertain, forbidden, too much, finally settled into something simple: warmth, breath, presence. Outside, the street lights flickered on. Inside, her heartbeat steadied against mine. Neither of us spoke, and for once, silence didn't feel like something to fix. She looked up at me, eyes half closed, and said softly, "You see me, don't you?" "Always," I said. And she smiled again, not because everything was perfect, but because it was finally real. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Speech Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?